I would like to share about the peer pressures and peer group influences that our teenagers experience. I recall some years ago attending a confirmation ceremony, and this is what the bishop had to say from Colossians 2, verses 6 and 7. He told those who were receiving confirmation, "You must live your whole life according to the Christ you have received, Jesus the Lord. You must be rooted in Him and built on Him and held firm by the faith you have been taught." My dear teenagers who have received confirmation and those who will receive confirmation, are you still rooted in Jesus? Or are peer group influences affecting you? So that's what we shall examine today. Let's begin by seeing the meanings of peers and peer group. Who are your peers? Your peers are generally people of more or less your age, and in many cases of your social status or ability. By ability I mean sports abilities, for instance. You normally have sports persons mixing together. So that is what your peers are. A peer group is similar, but it shows a certain exclusivity, like a clique of peers who share certain values or interests. Now, peer group influences may be good and positive. Let me give you an example to explain this. When I was in college, a group of us friends decided to meet once a week for a discussion on a previously selected topic. It was a great help to me, and in that sense, this peer group had a positive and good influence on me. Sadly, today, more and more, peer group influences are quite often negative and destructive of one's values and beliefs. For instance, where they may encourage you to smoke or have drugs or have alcohol. Therefore, it is rightly recommended that you test your peers before you make them your friends. You heard that proverb, "One rotten apple spoils the whole basket." So be careful. Now, peer group influences may be overt or covert. Overt influences are open, obvious, and direct, whereas covert influences are indirect and subtle. Overt are those generally from your peers, whereas covert are generally absorbed from TV, from films, from music videos, also from the newspaper, magazines, novels, and in the present generation, from Facebook and WhatsApp and various other things. Many youth crumble in the face of peer pressures and influences. Through this talk, I wish to exhort you, as in Proverbs 4, verse 14, Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evildoers. Similarly, Proverbs 1 verse 10 says, if sinners try to tempt you, don't give in, do not consent. For today, I have 13 points to put before you. Simple and direct. If it will help you, I will be happy. But I would want you to pay attention nevertheless. My first 2 points are parallelism and echolalia. I've taken them together because there seems to be some similarity in meaning. Let's begin with parallelism first. It is the term indicating the development of similar behaviors by 2 or more persons in response to similarity of environment. I'll repeat that because it's essential to know. Parallelism is a term indicating the development of similar behaviors by 2 or more persons in response to similarity of environment. Let me give you a very simple example. A mother and daughter. Many people will tell the daughter, you talk like your mother, you walk like your mother, you behave like your mother. Now, why does that happen? Because they are in the same environment. And that is what happens with peer group influences. You will generally not pick up some influences of those outside your peer group. It is also called Copycat Syndrome. Copycat Syndrome. It is based on the psychological factor of suggestibility. An experiment was conducted by a psychologist. He brought a perfume bottle to the class and he told the students, I will be going around your class with the cork opened. You will get a very pleasant perfume smell. And when you get that smell, raise your hands. But throughout, you will keep your eyes closed because I don't want you to be influenced by one another. And believe it or not, more than half the class raised their hands. And then the teacher, the psychologist, opened the bottle and he said, it's empty. There's no perfume in this. It has been thoroughly washed with soap. So, how you got the smell of perfume? It is because of the factor of suggestibility. I suggested to you that you would get the smell of perfume, and you fell for what I had to say. Suggestibility is an important factor in peer group pressures. We fall prey to what our peers directly or indirectly dictate to us. And that is what happens in parallelism. There is a strong need in us to belong to a group. There is what is called the herd mentality. Cows will group together, goats will group together, and so on, in their own groups. Similarly with us, there is a herd mentality. And it is difficult to swim against the tide The easier thing is to flow downstream with the tide. Let me give you a few examples of parallelism. Firstly, for instance, in the choice of stream, there are many who will say, I would like to go in for arts or science, but because my friends are doing commerce, I will follow them. Then we see this in unusual haircuts. The other day I saw a boy, half his side was shaved and the other half had long hair. I smiled, but this is what parallelism is doing. There are young boys, young girls following hairstyles, perhaps which even don't suit them. Then in college, they have Jeans Day, Rose Day, Ethnic Day, Valentine's Day, and what have you. And everyone follows. I remember a girl student of mine, she came to me and said, Sir, everyone wants me to wear jeans, but I don't have jeans, and my parents cannot afford it. I felt sorry for her, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Parallelism, in terms of peer pressures, forces youngsters to do what the rest does. What about tattoos? Then there are earrings, nose rings, which boys are wearing. I mean, that's part of peer pressures. We tend to imitate our heroes in dress and in language. What about echolalia? You've heard of echo, where across the mountain you say a word or a sentence and most of it comes back to you. So echolalia, in terms of peer pressures, is repetition of words, repetition of thinking, which shows an absence of wisdom in reasoning. I'll repeat that. Echolalia is repetition of words or thinking that shows an absence of wisdom in one's reasoning. I worked for a bank in Bombay for 5 years, and as you all know, there are frequent strikes. So one particular year, all of us newcomers had to join the morcha. And I don't remember the exact words, but one leader on that siren would say, "Ek do, fake do." And all of us, like goats, had to repeat those words. Today, as I recall that, I smile because it was a clear case of echolalia. Unfortunately, today, political echolalia is rampant and dangerous. Might is right, and this is what's happening in many of our colleges and institutions. Hence, there is a need to train our youngsters in proper techniques of arguing and debates so that they think and reason out and just don't follow what the mob dictates. Echolalia also includes the use of bad words, sharing of dirty jokes. It's all part of peer pressures. So what one group of students says, the others feel obliged to follow. My third point is that of an easygoing lifestyle. Would I be right in saying sossegado lifestyle? You decide. But this is what our youngsters want. They want success without hard work. And they are oblivious or even unaware of future difficulties regarding jobs. I have a cousin who worked as a waiter, even though he was highly qualified for a better job which he could not get. He was getting maybe 5,000 as a waiter. I feel sad. He was not the only case. There are many today who are not getting jobs. But our youth in colleges are blissfully unaware that they will not get jobs unless they are the best. And sometimes, even if they are the best, if there is no influence, they may not get a job. So what are they satisfied with? They are satisfied with a hedonistic lifestyle. Eat, drink, and make merry, for tomorrow we'll die. So they definitely eat, drink, and make merry at parties, picnics, dances, movies, and what have you. Now, to what extent are parents responsible? I think to a large extent. Because the child, when he's small, if he is trained properly, he will not resort to a hedonistic lifestyle later. It is commonly said that once our children are confirmed or that they have received the sacrament of confirmation, they gradually give up their religious beliefs and practices. A very sad case. I know of several in and around my village behaving this way. It is said that Saint Maximilian Kolbe's mother was exasperated with young Maximilian because he was very naughty. So one day she shouted at him and said, "What's going to become of you?" This hurt him, and that night he prayed before the statue of Our Lady. And from that time, Our Lady spoke to him and he changed his behavior. And today we know he is a saint. The story you can always find in a book of saints, the stories of saints. Another sad thing is that many of our youth are unable to face the unkind criticism and taunting of their peers. Sometimes they will hear it said, "Come on, yaar, don't be a girl, don't be a sissy." And they feel obliged to imitate what the others are demanding. They also fear being called or labeled a holy Joe or a holy Jane or a padri or a madri and so on. I was also labeled as a padri because I used to behave well. But there came a point when I rebelled against this and I said, "I'll show you, I'm not a padri." And then I started cracking dirty jokes and using all kinds of bad language just to prove a point that I'm not a padri. And I remember a dear friend who is no more, Sister Lydia, who told me, she said, "Nicholas, what's happened to you? You're such a good boy, and what are you trying to prove?" And I'm grateful to her because from that moment on, I changed my behavior. Like me, many youth develop a disdain or disinterest in religion, in prayer, just to prove a point. Let's look at what happens with our youth. Many of them have lost their priorities. They don't have a proper sense of their priorities. I'd like to perform a simple experiment to tell you what I mean. Now here is a box containing sand. Here is a plate with cubes. And here is a plate with spheres. Let's have a look at what happens. This box already contains sand. I am going to put these spheres into this box. Done. Now I'm going to put these cubes. What do you notice? It's almost overflowing. And if I have my lid and I want to close it, I won't be able to do it. So you see, sand first, then the spheres, and then the cubes. Now let's reverse this procedure and see what happens. Now, in this empty box, I shall place the cubes first. Done. Now I shall place the spheres. Mind you, I'm not shaking this box, I'm just pouring it in. Okay. And finally now, I shall try to put in the sand. Magic. Do you see this box? There is space for some more. I could even put this glass of water over this and it would absorb the glass of water, the water. Yes, my dear youth, this box is your life of priorities. The box represents your life. The spheres which I put in first are the very important things in your life. The spheres which I put in next are the important things. And the sand is the least important. When you have your priorities right, you will do justice first to the very important things. Then you will try to tackle the important things, and then you will see about the least important. Whereas in the first case, what did we do? We had the sand already inside. And what does the sand represent? It represents the least important things. And then we put in the spheres, which are the less important things. And then we try to put in the cubes, which are the most important things, but there was no place. That's what will happen if you do not have your priorities right. So my dear young friends, always make place for the most important things first, and then you'll find automatically that you can have place for less important things. Some of the least important things are times when you hang out with your friends, doing nothing, just gossiping, chatting, passing comments on girls who pass by. So be careful.